We're Mike and Betsy. In 2022, we quit our jobs, sold everything, and bought a sailboat. For the past year, we've been exploring the world with our 16-year-old daughter, Ellie. Our 44-foot sailboat named Rogue Fun is our floating home. In our last episode, we took our first big ocean passage, explored some islands in Georgia, and visited family and friends back in Wisconsin. Join us this time as we experience heat waves, try to outrun Hurricane Adalia, weather Tropical Storm Ophelia, and make the trek north to visit CJ and Elise in Delaware. It felt good to be back on the boat after a month away, and we still had a few days to enjoy Data Marina and prepare for our departure. Data Island is a gated community near Hilton Head Island in Beaufort, South Carolina. The marina has a great view, access to bikes, free laundry, and air-conditioned bathrooms. It was a busy few days, unpacking, putting everything away, and doing some canvas repair work. The heat was reaching 100 degrees. Since we were on the dock and able to plug in, we pulled out our portable air conditioner for the first time.
What? It's nice.
And of course, with the heat came lots of stormy weather. We just left Data Island Marina, where we had left the boat for a month. Now we're heading north on the ICW, and our goal is Delaware. Soon we were back into the swing of boat life as we headed north on the ICW. Sometimes as we're moving along, we come upon unexpected surprises. We were coming up a narrow canal and saw a dredging barge up ahead.
Do we have room to get by, or do we have to turn around?
Oh yeah, you got room.
We were glad we didn't have to turn around and wait out the barge, but passing the worksite was a bit close for comfort.
Oh, look how close.
It just feels like it's drifting toward me.
As we neared the Charleston area, we were bombarded with weekend boat traffic. The last time we were in Charleston was when we took our ASA sailing class, and it brought back some good memories. We decided to anchor near the Ravenel Bridge, but you always have to be on the lookout for floating debris. Soon after we anchored, this tree root ball came floating past. This anchoring spot has become one of our favorites because the sunsets are gorgeous, and it's right next to the USS Yorktown. It's even magical at night. The weekends were unpleasant, though, as the boat traffic left us almost constantly rocking and rolling. Speedboats, ferries, container ships, and cruise ships were always traveling by. But my favorite kind of traffic was the sailing school. I was just making dinner and heard a horn, and when I came above, I see this huge race around us. Another heat wave was going through the southeast, and the heat indices got upwards of 110.
The temperature right now, hot. It's hot. That's the temperature.
One of the best purchases we made was our new portable ice maker. We used to have to ration our 12 ice cubes that we could make in our freezer, but this ice maker was a game changer.
More years, baby.
No, we don't have much time.
That's when I go wrong. I don't know.
At 70?
Yeah.
After we provisioned and did laundry, we were ready to weigh anchor and continue north. But when we pulled up our anchor, we'd snagged some cement and parts of an old crab pot. It took a little finagling, but a fellow cruiser helped cut it loose. We decided to leave through the Charleston Inlet and head north along the coast, hoping to sail. We experienced major swells,
Oh my goodness, this is like a ride.
but no wind. Once we got back on the ICW, we did find some areas that were large enough and deep enough to be able to sail. We had a beautiful sail through Winyah Bay in South Carolina. Although, even if we could find places to sail, sometimes the wind was so low that we could only creep along. But at least we were sailing. It's going to be a really long day today. We've got about 9 hours of motoring up the ICW. We did do a little sailing yesterday on the ICW, but today will be very narrow, and our depth is going to be very important. So, yeah. The further north we moved, the more the scenery started changing into more of a forest with lots of floating plants. South Carolina Public Schools. It's a school bus ferry. Some of the bridges on the ICW are tall enough to sail under, some open on demand, and some you have to plan ahead and time your passage just right. Well, this was one of the lowest bridges we've seen yet. Near Myrtle Beach, there's a narrow 3-mile section of the ICW known as the Rock Pile. There are rock ledges and dangerous rocky areas to avoid, and there's no turning around if you encounter any large tugs or tows that might be transiting at the same time. So before entering this stretch, it's important to check ahead on the VHF radio to make sure it's safe to pass. It was unnerving to see all the rocky areas and danger signs along the way. Soon we made it to Bird Island, which is right on the ocean on the border between North and South Carolina. It was so beautiful that we anchored here for a few days. We took the dinghy to shore to explore this beautiful island. Our next stop was Carolina Beach, North Carolina. It was time to provision again. When we get to a new place, the first thing we do is check how close things are, like groceries and propane refill. It's always fun to explore a new location. Luckily, in Carolina Beach, the grocery store is only a little more than a half-mile from the dinghy dock. Even so, our arms were aching by the time we got back.
It is oil changing day. Got all the equipment, the new oil, the tools we need, new filter, the pump. We've warmed up the engine.
We need to do this maintenance about every 200 engine hours. The Carolina Beach Boardwalk was a great way to spend a hot afternoon. While in Carolina Beach, we were keeping an eye on the developing Hurricane Adalia. Now it looked like it was shaping up to head directly our way. The next day, we were on our way, motoring long days to try and get ahead of Adalia's predicted path. We had a few days to move north quickly, and then we would need to find a good protected anchorage where we could weather the effects. We were just boarded by the Coast Guard. Back before the last bridge, somebody had pumped out right into the river their waste tank, and there was stuff all over the place. But they were trying to track down who did it, and we had been sitting there waiting, so they boarded us and checked all of our documentation and our safety things. And
Somebody had told them they thought it was us.
yeah, somebody had said that we were sitting there for a while, and so they thought it might be us. But it wasn't. We passed with no tickets, so that's good. We barreled up the coast at a speed of about 6 miles an hour until we were just out of Adalia's path. We found a hurricane hole near a little river off the bigger Pamlico River that would provide wind protection with good holding. Once we were in our anchorage, the next order of business was getting the boat ready for high winds, taking down the wind scoop, tying down fenders, running the generator to top off our batteries, securing the solar panels, and taking down the extra canvas. We took care of everything we could think of. Now we just had to wait for Adalia to arrive. All in all, we fared very well, and soon we were on our way north once again. Our next stop was Belhaven. We needed to do laundry and schedule a diver to check the status of the zinc on our propeller. When you have different metals in seawater, like a stainless steel shaft and an iron keel, they essentially are turned into a battery. When one of the metals gives up metal ions to create the electrons to feed the current, that's galvanic corrosion. To stop this corrosion, we put sacrificial anodes made of zinc on our propeller shaft. Belhaven Marina provides a golf cart to make provisioning easy. It was so much fun. It was much easier than walking with all of our groceries.
I feel so spoiled.
Having the golf cart allowed us to do a bigger provisioning than usual. When we get back to the boat after provisioning, we bring everything below decks and start to organize. On a boat, storage is key. To help keep track of everything, any items that we're going to put below the floorboards, I scan into an app so we know what backups we have. Once it's all sorted and categorized by storage location, we store it all away. Here you can see us lifting up the floorboards in the galley to store items below. We decided to head further up the Pamlico River. On our way, we had our biggest dolphin encounter yet.
Ellie and I were doing school downstairs, and Mike called out that there were dolphins coming, and they were jumping through the water so that they could get to the boat. And we ran up, and they swam with us at the bow for like 10 minutes. It was so amazing, and Ellie got to sit in the dolphin seat right here. Ellie is about to come up. Right here. Try to keep up with us. Everywhere they turn, here they come. Are the best!
Too soon they swam away, bringing a close to yet another magical memory. We have been enjoying visiting lots of historical places, and they've been fitting in nicely with Ellie's U.S. history course. The next place we wanted to explore was the city of Bath, which was North Carolina's first town. Bath has an exhibit center with an excellent museum detailing the founding and history of Bath. Afterwards, we visited the oldest home in Bath, the Palmer Marsh House. The tour guide helped us appreciate what life was like back in the 1800s. Afterwards, we did the walking tour, which led us to St. Thomas Episcopal Church, which is the oldest church building in the state. We also made our way to Bonner's Point, where it's rumored that Edward Teach, the notorious pirate called Blackbeard, lived in the early 1700s. You can even see Rogue Fun from Bonner's Point. We finished up by visiting a small market in Bath, and back on board we enjoyed cheese biscuits and the best tomatoes we've ever had. We were in for another surprise. Tropical storm Ophelia was taking shape and heading our way. We decided to take shelter further up the Pamlico River in Washington, North Carolina. Plus, it was such a beautiful day that we got to put the sails out. Washington is commonly known as Original Washington or Little Washington to distinguish it from Washington, D.C. Little Washington is the first city named after George Washington. It's a wonderful, boater-friendly city with a beautiful waterfront. Our major source of power on the boat is solar energy. A few times a day, we tilt the solar panels to take in as much solar power as possible. This renewable energy powers all the systems on our boat. On one of our trips north, we found that our canvas wasn't keeping out the rain quite as much as we'd like, and we ended up traveling for hours with an umbrella over our heads under the bimini to stay dry. We wanted to reapply waterproofing to the canvas before Ophelia hit. While in Washington, we alternated between staying on the free docks and anchoring in the river. Either way provided great views. The waterfront here flies weather signal flags. On this day, they were flying the plain white flag, signaling fair weather. Based on looks, you'd never guess that Ophelia was right around the corner. Soon, the tropical storm flag was flying, and we waited for Ophelia to arrive. And arrive she did. The winds were howling around us, and the rain began to fall. The heavy winds pushed the water up the narrowing Pamlico River, causing a storm surge that burst over the banks. We were glad we anchored out instead of taking our chances being pushed back and forth along the dock pilings. The parking lots flooded, and soon we started seeing a lot of different items getting carried away by the water surge. We think we saw a chest freezer that became wedged up against the gazebo's metal railings, and huge logs and tree trunks hurtled on by. Surprisingly, the water quickly receded by the next day, and everything seemed to get back to normal. Well, that is, until I went out on deck and noticed part of a huge tree wedged underneath the stern of the boat. Luckily, it didn't take more than the boat hook to work it loose. We were surprised at some of the massive trees that kept floating on down the river. This one was almost as long as our boat. We enjoyed our stay in Washington so much. The population's not very big, but one thing we noticed is that people were always walking down by the waterfront, playing in the parks and exercising in the fields. It's so picturesque here that it seems someone's always taking wedding, engagement pictures, or quinceañera photo shoots. We even had our own photo shoot aboard Rogue Fun one day, as two young women requested to use the boat to promote their clothing boutique. This city is full of history. I loved walking through the streets and seeing so many houses with plaques dedicating their date of construction. The city also presents awards for those historical homes that are renovated, like this one from 1873. These three homes from the late 1700s are still standing and went through a lot, multiple city fires, and even cannonball fire from the Civil War. The downtown area has also had a lot of renovation, beautiful storefronts, and each time I would walk downtown, there would be a vintage mural in progress. This one is my favorite. The waterfront walkway is a little less than a mile and leads past the estuarium to some turtle ponds along the way. On sunny days, you could see the turtles all lined up for their spot in the sun. Mid-October, we headed out of Washington in rainy, overcast weather. The wind and the waves made for an exciting passage. We were even graced with a beautiful full rainbow. The days were getting chillier, and soon we started seeing signs of fall. Not all days were overcast, though. Some days we got perfect sailing weather. You know it's a good day when it ends like this. We made it to Virginia. We stayed at the free docks one night and then prepared for our passing through the lock the next day. We were one of the only boats we saw heading north that time of year. Many of the boats passing us heading south shouted out and told us that we were going the wrong way. The lock experience was a little anticlimactic, but it was our first time and it kept us busy. We were the only ones in the lock heading north, but everyone had to wait in a line to go south. They just kept on coming. We passed all kinds of bridges on our way to Delaware. This was one of the longest yet. We even squeaked through some very narrow openings. We were a bit confused when we reached this double bridge. It had railroad tracks on a bascule bridge, immediately followed by a lift bridge that raised straight up in the air. The train bridge is normally open to river traffic, but a train was expected, so we had to wait for that to pass before we could continue on. The Elizabeth River is a busy one. It's a significant military and commercial port facility. You never know what you'll see. We passed this beautiful vintage sailing ship, aptly named Virginia. We had to keep a watchful eye out for barges. Along with barges come huge wakes.
Ellie, hold on.
Here comes the wake. Whoa.
Because heavier winds were forecasted in the following days for the Chesapeake Bay, we decided to make the best of a decent weather window and do our first overnight passage. It was definitely strange moving in the dark, but then we got to put our new radar to the test. We traveled about 140 miles in 23 hours. We knew we were getting close when we got to the Bay Bridge in Annapolis, Maryland. This was the bridge we crossed by car almost exactly a year before when we went to the Annapolis Boat Show dreaming about our future sailboat home. I think we're finally getting the hang of this sailing thing. It was definitely fall by the time we reached Delaware. We now had our cold weather layers out all the time, and the leaves were almost reaching their peak. We anchored out until Elise and CJ were able to come meet us. For the first time, we tried out the Coke can anchoring method, great for Chesapeake mud. Once the anchor's dropped, you crack a can of Coke. By the time you finish your Coke, the anchor should have sunk deep in the mud bottom, ready to be back down on for a firm set. We had been looking forward to this visit for months. We stayed at a marina so it'd be easy for CJ and Elise to see the boat. And then they took us back to Smyrna to see their new apartment. While visiting, we ate some fabulous meals, played some fun games, and went on beautiful walks. On our last night, we anchored out again. CJ and Elise just got here and we're waiting for them. We're going to take them out for their anniversary dinner, a little belated, but come and we'll enjoy some drinks and snacks in the cockpit and then go into shore for dinner. We had a great visit with Elise and CJ, and we're so proud of the life they're building together. Well, this trip to Delaware marks the beginning of another exciting destination. Bahamas, here we come.